Audible, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good
afternoon,
afternoon. Please
sir.
start.
Good afternoon. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Sir, today's case is of portal hypertension.
Hmm.
Hello? Yes.
Yes.
I'll start. My patient Anup Patil, a 45-year-old Hindu married male residing at Vashi, Navi Mumbai, bus driver by occupation, comes with chief complaints of distension of abdomen since 2 months and vomiting of blood since 10 days. My patient was apparently alright 2 months back, after which he started experiencing abdominal distension, which was insidious in onset and gradually progressive in nature. So it is associated with aching pain all over the abdomen on stretching. Also, there is association of bilateral pedal edema, which occurred after the abdominal distension.
Okay.
Yes, sir. My patient also complained of blood and vomit, which he noticed for the first time 10 days back. There are at least 3 episodes of vomiting in the day, amount of blood lost being around 30 to 40 ml with every episode. The color of vomit is coffee colored. It is also accompanied by passage of blood. It is also accompanied by passage of black tarry stools, which is offensive in nature, semi-solid in consistency, associated with dizziness during defecation. So we are now ruling out the history of etiologies, different
Yeah.
suggestive
So
of
from
etiology.
ODP,
Yes, sir.
what have you understood?
So from ODP, I've understood that we can rule out certain, because of the bilateral pedal edema, we can rule out that this could not be a case of congestive cardiac failure, which could, because if it had to be the case of CCF, then the pedal edema would have occurred a long back before the abdominal distension started. So that I can rule out. And
Okay.
even there is gradual abdominal distension. So that could even indicate a nephrotic, like a renal disease, or it could also indicate a cirrhotic disease or a liver disease. It could also indicate any gradual fat fleet, any obstruction inside, which can indicate the presence of flatus, a lot of flatus inside the abdomen up till now.
Okay. But how would you rule out nephrotic syndrome?
Sir, on asking the patient history, I will ask him for the presence of facial edema, if at all it is present. So that will rule out my renal etiology.
Now, what is the difference between the renal compromise and cardiac compromise edema?
Sir, in renal edema, there will be the facial edema will be present in the morning, usually along with the generalized edema, which will be present in the body. And in CCF, if the pedal edema would have started long back, before the starting of the abdominal distension, so that I could differentiate from that.
Is it full facial edema or in a specific region of the face?
Sir, mostly it is seen in the periorbital edema.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And in CCF?
So there will be tightness of the fingers. I could ask him if there is any tightness of the ring, which is if there is a ring around his finger. So if there is a tightness which is seen.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay. So move ahead.
Fine. Yeah. Please.
Yeah. Sir, there is no history of ingestion of NSAIDs spanning for years. There is no history of known peptic ulcer disease. And there is no history of ingestion of a lot of iron compounds. Neither there is any history of barium ingestion. Sir, there is no history of dyspepsia. There is no history of loss of appetite or any weight loss. There is no history of fever with chills. There is no history of bleeding gums with bone pains and ecchymotic skin patches. There is no history of evening rise of temperature, no loss of appetite or weight loss or coughing of blood. There is no history of chest pain. There is no history of right hypochondriac pain. And there is no history of edema of the feet, which occurred before the abdominal distension. So there is no history of decreased urine output, puffiness of the face, occasional loin pain. There is no history of that. And there is no history of trauma. There is no history of severe dehydration or diarrhea, which required prior hospitalization. And there is no, this is all. So now we can go.
As a rule, always rule out trauma first.
Yes,
in
sir.
any surgical case as such. Then you go to the pathological. Now,
Yes,
you have asked many things here. So what main etiological factors have ruled out here?
So major rule out, I have ruled out renal cause, renal involvement of in the cases of, in this case, I've ruled out renal involvement. I've also ruled
Mhm.
out cardiac cause. That could be because of any constrictive pericarditis or
Okay.
chronic cardiac failure. And
Mhm.
I have also ruled out the etiological, what could have caused any etiological cause of splenomegaly. For example, if there is any malaria, or there is no history of bleeding gums, which rules out any possibility of leukemia. Even I have ruled out the
Mhm.
possibility of malignancy by asking him the history of any weight loss or cachexia, basically. And also, I
Okay.
have ruled out TB as an infectious cause by asking him if there is any evening rise of temperature or loss of appetite or weight loss or coughing up of blood.
Okay.
I have also ruled out carcinoma of the stomach here because there is no history of dyspepsia or any loss of appetite associated with weight loss.
Mhm.
So, yes, sir. And I have also inquired
And the
about
peptic
the,
ulcer.
yes, even some peptic ulcer, I have ruled out that.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Anything else you would like to ask?
Yes, sir. I would like to ask him about the blood transfusion, if he has required any blood transfusion in the past. Also, I would like to ask if there has been any history of jaundice in the past, or if there is any procedure which he had to do for which required hospital admission, just in
That is
case to
important.
rule out any involvement of thrombosis in cases of perivascular thrombosis or something.
No, no, miss. How hospitalization affects
So the
means
patient will
what
be
is
on
on.
the bed.
Your point is
Sir,
right.
yes, sir.
What I'm asking is why.
So because of prolonged bed rest, so that would not allow the movement. So that could lead to
Okay.
increased risk of thrombosis.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Fine. Next.
So that was in past history also, asking for any history of surgery in the past also. So now family history. So the family history, there is no history of TB, diabetes mellitus, or hypertension or asthma. So there is even no history of any associated liver disease in the family. Uh,
Now, which familial liver disease will be present?
Yes, sir. So familial liver diseases, which could be, we can ask for hemosiderosis, hemochromatosis, alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. That could also be Wilson's disease. Yeah,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Okay. Fine.
So,
Next.
so then personal history. So on inquiring, patient is a chronic alcoholic who has been drinking since more than 10 years. And so regarding the alcohol history I've taken, so the type of drink which he used was country liquor, and he used to frequency was daily, and the quantity which he used was more than 80 ml per day, and he has been drinking for more than since last more than 10 years now. So even in the personal history, there is no sleep disturbances. There are bowel and the bladder habits are normal, and there are no known allergies.
So how alcohol affects?
So basically, what happens in alcohol, the patient is usually undernourished, because of which that can increase the capillary hydrostatic pressure, which can also give rise to a lot of increase in the colloidal osmotic pressure, could lead to hypoalbuminuria, which can give rise to ascitic fluid, the oozing out of the fluid in that way. So even the chronic alcoholism can also lead to liver cell dysfunction, which can cause, which can increase the aldosterone production, which can even
Okay.
lead to the sodium retention, which can again contribute to the same cause.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Go on.
Okay. So yeah. So my provisional diagnosis up till now is alcoholic liver disease with ascites.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Without any
With
complications, sir.
ascites. Okay. Mhm. Okay. No.
Yes, sir. So proceed with the general examination.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir.
But see,
Uh,
you have to come to a surgical cause because it's a surgical case.
okay.
Alcoholic liver disease is a biological factor.
Yes, sir.
So you want to? Are you sure that patient is not having portal hypertension?
No, sir. Right
Or
now,
you
I
or
could
you're
not.
sure?
Sir, on general examination, I will find out portal hypertension, like on inspection and
Mhm.
everything.
So from history you cannot make out.
So from history, I can make out portal hypertension as one of the results of this liver disease.
Hmm.
It could be
So
one
you
of the
can mention no. He has also given history of hematemesis, correct?
yes, sir.
So that is one of
Can
the thing, no?
varices can, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that is what I'm saying.
Yes.
You shouldn't say it just as an alcoholic liver disease,
Okay.
because that is goes more in favor of a medical condition,
Okay,
and
sir.
it is of course a contributory factor. There is no doubt. But
Yes, sir.
when you are mentioning provisional diagnosis, you should
Yes.
mention is a portal hypertension.
Okay.
Possibly the etiology is alcoholic liver disease and cirrhosis.
Okay. Okay,
That is
sir.
the cause, root cause. But
Okay,
patient
sir.
has hematemesis. If he doesn't
Yes,
have
sir.
hematemesis, it's a different story. And you can then ask that or tell that I would like to examine the patient and then come to
Okay.
the conclusion of portal hypertension. Otherwise,
Okay,
here
sir.
the history is pretty straightforward. So you can
Yes, sir.
straightaway mention that patient appears to have been in portal hypertension, alcohol as one of the etiological factors,
Yes, sir.
and you also see actually here even in the history you can also come to know whether it is a compensated or decompensated cirrhosis.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what type of here it is?
So it is a decompensated type of cirrhosis.
Okay, okay. So that also you can tell if you just take the history properly. Okay,
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
okay. Proceed.
Okay, sir. So general examination. My patient is conscious, cooperative, well-oriented with time, place, and person. He is moderately built but poorly nourished. He is afebrile. The pulse is 80 beats per minute, which is taken in the right radial pulse with normal force, volume, tension, and rhythm. No radiofemoral delay and bilaterally equal. The respiratory rate is 20 cycles per minute. The blood pressure is 110 over 70 millimeters of mercury, which is taken in the right upper arm in the supine position. Now coming towards us general signs, the pallor is present, icterus is mildly present, edema is present, which is present in the lower third of the lower third of the legs. Pitting edema is seen. There is no cyanosis. Clubbing is present, and there is no generalized lymphadenopathy.
Mhm.
So now, even for the signs of hyperestrogenism, I have looked out for the signs of that,
Mhm.
and I found out that there is no loss of any secondary sexual hairs like pubic hair or the axillary hairs. There is no
Mhm.
spider nevi or palmar erythema. No flapping tremors is seen. There is no loss of testicular sensations, or there is no testicular atrophy, and there is no gynecomastia.
Okay, very good.
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
even I have also found different signs. I have also looked out for signs for KF Fleischer rings in the eyes, in the sclera,
Mhm.
basically, and I have not found no such ring present. So there are no Bitot spot which are seen, and
Why these
there.
findings are present?
So to rule out Wilson's disease, familial history of Wilson's disease.
Okay,
Yes,
and
sir.
Bitot spots.
So vitamin A deficiency.
Okay.
Okay. So even the hepatic phase, there are shrunken eyes, and I could also find out a pinched up nose with malar prominence, which could indicate hepatic feces.
Okay.
And since he's a chronic alcoholic, there is Dupuytren's contracture, which is seen in his hands.
Mhm.
He's a chronic
Okay.
alcoholic. Yes, sir.
Okay.
So this is general examination. Now proceed with the
Oh,
systemic.
anything else you want to mention in general examination
Uh,
to understand liver compromise? You have
uh,
asked so far many things, but still,
yes, sir. So right now.
like you
So,
mentioned about say other feature like hyperesteronism. So like that,
yes, sir.
anything else?
So I could even ask him for asterixes. Like I could really see if there is any flapping tremor which is present.
Okay, how do you show flapping tremor?
So I
How do you
asked the
demonstrate?
patient to, yes, sir, the patient to ask the patient to keep his hands in this format, and then to flex his palm like this, and there I could see the tremor which can be seen. It will be in a
Can
very.
you have on the screen, please?
I'm sorry, sir.
No, I'm just asking the organizer to just can you have your screen, please, so you can actually demonstrate.
Okay. I don't know. So is it full screen now?
No, I don't know.
No.
Can anyone see? full screen.
So now?
Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah, fine. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Go on. Yeah.
So ask
Yeah,
the
sure.
patient to put his hands in this format.
How is supposed to?
And asking the patient to move his hands in the flexion form in this way. So there could be, if there is hysterectomy, there will be flapping tremor which will be seen in this format, like this, like this, like this, like this.
Okay.
Am I being audible? Yes.
But we would like to show both the hands, or yes, you are audible.
Yes, sir.
I'm asking, we'll be showing both hands, or you're showing only one hand?
So both the hands. Basically, we will test one and then we'll test bilaterally.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay, go on.
Okay. Go on like this, sir.
Go on.
Okay.
Yes.
So systemic examination.
Yes.
So per abdomen, I start with the per abdomen examination. So I have examined the patient both in the standing and the supine position. First in the standing position and then in the supine position, by keeping him under natural sunlight while maintaining the patient's privacy. So now I'll start with the inspection first. So in inspection of the abdomen, there is generalized distension of the abdomen. And in the supine position, I could see the fullness of the flanks in the supine position. And the umbilicus now, the umbilicus is transversely stretched.
See, again, first examination is always in standing position.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So please mention that when you are mentioning this. So first, you examine patient in standing position by exposing him till the knee joints.
Yes, sir.
Or at least mid thigh.
Okay, sir.
So here, what you observed?
Sir, I observed that there is generalized, yes, sir, generalized distension of the abdomen. And in the supine position, I have also inspected the fullness of flanks, which is
supine
seen.
will come.
Okay, later. Okay, sir.
Mention supine later. Just everything on a standing position, because that is a position in which you will get maximum prominence of everything.
Yes, sir.
That is important.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
So there is generalized distension of the abdomen, which is seen in the standing position. And the umbilicus is transversely stretched. And the abdominal movements with respiration, it is abdominothoracic. And there are no visible pulsations. There are no visible peristalsis. The hernial orifices are within normal limits. So there is no visible swelling which is seen. The dilated veins are seen, which is around the umbilicus, which and the direction of the blood is away from the umbilicus. Then there is no diverification of recti
So
seen.
capitis is present?
Yes, sir. Capitis is. Then we have, there is no abnormal skin color or any scar from the previous surgery, or the lesions or pigmentation present. And the external genitalia is normal.
Okay.
So now in the,
there is
in
no
the supine
atrophy or
position.
something?
No, sir. Not right now. No.
Okay.
Now
and when you are completing standing, also rule out the left supraclavicular fossa. Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. The Virchow's node.
Malignance also. Yeah. Virchow's nodes are fullness as such. Virchow's nodes.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Can you mention supine and re-inspect?
Okay. So now I re-inspect the patient after putting him in supine position. And now I could see the same findings, like the generalized distension of the abdomen. Now, additional finding, there is the fullness of the flanks, which is seen in the supine position.
Yes.
And sir, there is no diverification of recti, which is seen.
Okay.
And the external genitalia is normal. There is no
diverification of the recti is because of two things. One is because of the ascites you may see, or sometimes because of ascites not appreciated, you may have to ask patient to do certain maneuver, like.
Sir, I will ask the patient to put his head up, a little up, to cause that, to notice the diverification of recti.
So Carnet's test is required?
Yes, sir.
Carnet's test is required?
Yes, sir. Carnet's.
Okay. Yeah, then?
Sir, and external genitalia is normal, and there is no fullness of the Virchow's node, which is seen in the supraclavicular region.
Okay.
Sir, proceed with the palpation.
Yes.
Okay. So the findings on inspection are confirmed on palpation. I asked the patient to semiflex his legs to allow me to palpate for the organs. in the abdomen, on the abdomen.
Again, Amatullah, start with again temperature and tenderness as
Yes, sir. Okay.
as actually.
Yes,
There
sir.
is no
Okay.
raised temperature, there is no tenderness,
No
and then
tenderness.
all the findings of inspection are confirmed. Fine?
Confirmed. Okay,
Yeah.
sir.
Then
So
proceed.
findings of inspection are confirmed. There is no no tenderness. There is no temperature. There is no abnormal temperature which is seen, which is felt. And the palpation now, proceeding with the palpation. So the palpation I have done it with the dipping method.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Okay.
palpation of the liver. The liver is not palpable, and there is no tenderness under the right costal margin.
Okay.
And the spleen, such spleen is enlarged 4 centimeters from the left costal margin.
Mhm. Okay.
And the kidneys are not palpating.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir. Yeah.
Great.
So proceeding with the percussion. So the finding of ascites is confirmed on percussion by using fluid thrill method.
Okay.
So I asked the patient to put his hand on the midline of the abdomen, and then from one hand will tap on one of the flanks, and the other hand will
Okay.
feel the sensations, which is, if I'm able to feel the sensations of the fluid which
Okay.
is transmitted. So this was elicited
Why
usually.
has to put hand in between?
So to obstruct the flow, if there is any abdominal vibrations, to obstruct that, we have asked the patient to put his hand in between.
Okay. Abdominal vibrations means exactly what?
So if there is any vibration, as in any peristaltic sounds, or anything which could cause those vibrations.
Yes, means you are correct, but what you are telling is a little different. What
Okay.
your theme is correct means you don't want to have any false results. You want to have a
Yes, sir.
true fluid thrill. So
Yes,
on
sir.
both sides you are holding the hand.
Yes, sir.
One side you are making tap, and other side you are perceiving. Fine. So the wave
Yes, sir.
will go like that. But if the patient is also having subcutaneous fat, so
Yes, sir.
So basically, the fluid has to go across. I mean, the wave has to generate from one point, and it has to transfer to the fluid. Now, there's a
Yes, sir.
possibility that when you tap, there's a possibility that the wave will also transmit subcutaneously. So the
Yes.
subcutaneous fat then, and which will
Okay.
actually give you a different effect. You know,
Okay.
suppose the inside fluid is loculated, and you are tapping, and the wave is going from the subcutaneous fat plane, you will feel it's a fluid thrill. But inside there is a loculate collection, so you will have a different perspective. But if it
Okay.
is a true free fluid inside, you need to obstruct. That is why the patient has to keep it and depress it, so no wave is going to get transmitted across the abdominal wall and the
Abdomen.
subcutaneous fat plane. That is most important. Once you rule out that, you can perceive a true fluid thrill. Okay. Now, how
Yes,
much
sir.
fluid has to be present when fluid thrill is to be perceived?
So 1.5 liters.
Okay, fine. Then there's a possibility the examiner may ask you regarding the other types of percussions, like percussion, when you do the horseshoe shape dullness, and when you do shifting dullness, etc. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So just tell me about the shifting dullness.
So shifting dullness, regarding the shifting dullness, first I'm going to start percussing the nodes from the umbilicus towards the towards going to lateral hypogastrium side, and now towards the iliac fossa and all. And now I'm going to see the area where I am going to hear a dull note. And now, keeping that in point of view, I'm going to ask the patient to shift to lateral, rotate himself towards the other side, so that that point is coming above. And now I'm going to keep that patient for 1 minute, and after which now I'm going to start percussing that, and I will see the tympanic sound, which is going to indicate the shifting of the fluid. So this is usually seen when there is
No,
1 liter of
actually,
fluid.
what you check the shifting dullness. No, what you're supposed to check, Amatullah, is a shifting dullness. The dullness you need to demonstrate shifted. You don't have to
Okay, sir.
demonstrate that the dullness has now changed to tympanic note.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Got my point? The
Yes, sir.
difference
Okay, sir.
between showing the uh,
So voice.
you're getting first dull note. So you mark that site. Fine. Now
Yes, sir.
you keep that. You just turn the patient completely.
Yes, sir.
As you said correctly, you make patient wait for a minute or so, and then you start again percussing from that point below.
Okay.
Below. Now the dull point has now gone. Now what you're perceiving is a tympanic note
Yes.
all around.
Yes, sir.
And now when you get a dull note, that is the point you have to mark. So this
Yes.
X point has now shifted to Y point.
Okay, sir. Yes.
That shifting dullness is important. So this dullness has shifted all across the abdomen. So showing thing that entire abdomen is fluid filled.
Yes.
Approximately a liter of fluid is present, and you have actually demonstrated the shifting dullness. So it is not that just point disappearance. The dullness has to be present there, as well as you have to demonstrate that dullness has gone across the abdominal part and to the other extreme, and it is now present there. The fluid has shifted, and dullness has also shifted from there, this point to that point. So just absence of dullness, this point doesn't make you, let's say, shifting dullness. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Where
Okay.
the dullness has shifted, also need to demonstrate. So you have to mark
Okay.
that point and also need to mark opposite point. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Sure.
Okay.
Next.
Sir, pudding sign.
Positive sign, yes.
Okay. Sir, I asked the patient to assume a knee chest position so that whatever the fluid is there inside the abdomen will come and get collected near the umbilicus because of the effect of gravity. And now just, yeah, and now I used my stethoscope to keep it on one side of the abdomen, and from the other side I'm going to tap it, so there will be a pebble like sound which can be heard, so that is going to show the Puddle sign. And this could be demonstrated when there is around 250 ml of fluid which is present, free fluid is present, 250 to 500 ml.
Okay. Actually, Puddle sign is even very less fluid actually.
Okay.
Say even around 125 cc fluid, you can pick up with this because it is abdomen is exactly reverse.
Yes, sir.
And it is going to gravitate around the umbilicus. So either you can tap, but this is anatomically difficult. So you can put the diaphragm or sometimes required the bell of the stethoscope and appreciate the puddle. So when you just tap from one side, it's like creating ripples in the small pond. So like that effect is seen. So that is a puddle sign.
Yes, sir.
Next is a horseshoe shaped dullness. How we do?
So I start percussing from the umbilicus towards the radial, like in a semicircle fashion, starting from the abdomen, from the umbilicus, and I go down percussing. So the entire area I will be having a dull note. So when I hear a tympanic note, I'm going to mark that area, and when I'm going to join the area in a semicircle format, so that is going to give me a horseshoe shape. There will be a dull note which can be percussed, which can be seen here.
Okay.
I join the dull
Any
notes,
other method of?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. From the above till the umbilicus, I can do the same thing, percussion. So even that can be done.
So from where you start?
So from like the margin, sir, like.
From where you start? Above means what?
From below the xiphisternum, sir.
Okay.
So from there we start percussing towards the umbilicus.
See, so there are two methods.
Yes.
One is the vertical method.
Yes, sir.
So in vertical method, you go in the midline and also go in the mid clavicular line. Okay. So wherever these points meet, so therefore this is the midline, this is the mid clavicular line. So all these 3 points meet, it gives a horseshoe shape, dullness below. That is a vertical method. The radial method is you come from above, go at the umbilicus, and then you go radially all across. Okay. And you mark all these points and combine it. It forms a horseshoe shape dullness. So two methods one can demonstrate. Okay. So this is again you can demonstrate even standing also as well as in a supine position. But supine position, what happens? It becomes like a all around. Fluid can go all around. So a classical horseshoe shape, you require a little reclined bed. So ensure the fluid to gravitate and be in the pelvis. Okay. Next.
So now the auscultation. Proceeding with the auscultation. So the normal peristaltic sounds are heard over the abdomen, and a supraumbilical venous hum is heard.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And there is no bruit, which is
that is called as.
That is called as Kennedy's sign.
Okay. Okay.
And
one more sound is heard.
So yes, sir. One more sound is heard.
One more sound is heard. Right?
Korweiler.
Umbilicus.
Yes, sir. Korweiler sign. And it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is.
Cruvelier Brumgarten sound.
Korweiler Brumgarten sign. Yes, sir. Okay.
Yes.
And there is no bruit heard over the liver or the spleen. on auscultation.
Okay.
So then proceeding with, sir,
Then
I would like,
systemic examination.
yes, sir, sir, respiratory rate and all, the respiratory system, there is bilaterally equal on both the sides, and cardiovascular system, there is S1, S2 heard, no cardiac murmur is auscultated. And so proceeding ahead, I would like to perform digital per rectal exam. So even the nervous system, there are no abnormal reflexes which is seen. Sir?
Okay.
Hello. Huh. So I would like to perform digital per rectal examination to rule out any pelvic deposits or
Correct.
rectal varices.
Correct. Okay. So now, what is the final diagnosis?
So my final diagnosis is my patient probably has portal hypertension due to cirrhosis with splenomegaly and ascites without any complications.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Yes, sir.
can you just refine again your diagnosis?
Okay, my patient probably has a portal hypertension due to cirrhosis with splenomegaly and ascites without any complications.
Okay. Splenomegaly, what mild, moderate, severe?
So it's a moderate splenomegaly.
Till where it is
So
present?
it's a 4 centimeter. It is 4 centimeter from the left costal margin.
Okay. So that is mild or moderate?
So that should be mild.
Okay.
Okay.
Then next,
Yes, sir.
ascites is mild, moderate, or severe?
So ascites is severe. It's
Severe.
around.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Fine. Okay.
Okay.
And whether it is compensated or decompensated?
So decompensated liver disease. So it's
Okay.
because
So
it's
all these points you need to include in your final diagnosis.
so even the
And
moderate.
then yeah, and then later on, then we can then decide depending on the investigations, the actual score for the portal hypertension.
Yes,
Fine.
sir. Okay.
So now, how will you manage your patient now?
So managing the patient, first I would like to send the patient for various investigations like basic and advanced investigations. So for the basic investigations, I would like to ask him to do the blood investigations like complete blood count, ESR. Even I would like to ask him to do LFTs, RFTs, and chest PA view X-ray. Then also I would like to ask him to see the vitamin levels of the serum vitamin levels. Also I would like to ask him to do the blood sugar levels, and I would like him to do ECG and the stool tests for seeing the occult blood which can be
Amatullah,
present. Yes, sir.
when you're presenting the investigations, you first
Yes,
finish entire biochemical parameters, then you
Okay.
go to radiological and
Okay.
specific. Okay. So
Okay, sir.
investigation by biochemical, so CBC, urine routine, stool
Yes.
routine microscopy, complete liver function tests, then at least is BUN and creatinine, if possible, renal function test,
Yes, sir.
then bleeding time, clotting time, prothrombin time. That
Prothrombin.
is
Yes, sir.
important for these patients. What
Yes.
else is important? What else?
So even the vitamin D,
Is
vitamin
blood
levels are
sugar,
important.
fasting
Yes.
post lunch, then special tests like
Like
you may ask for vitamin B12 levels,
yes, sir.
or and what else?
So even I will ask for peripheral smear to rule out
Peripheral smear, okay,
yes, sir, pancytosis.
okay.
Yes, sir.
What else?
So then going towards the radiological investigations.
No, anything else in biochemical? You have to look anything else?
In biochemical, so RFTs we can ask him to do renal function tests. Then the stool test also to find out if there is any occult blood which can be
Yeah,
present.
that we mentioned. What else?
Yeah.
About copper levels?
Okay, so the copper levels, sir. The iron, the entire thing.
Yeah.
The iron profile.
Yeah, iron profile. Then
Yes.
alpha vena antitrypsin deficiency, that also you have to rule out, right?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned. So you finish entire normal and specific biochemical, and then you proceed to the radiological. So you don't have to again come back.
Right, sir. Okay, sir.
Then radiological what?
So basic one will include the chest X-ray PA view and ECG, and also then for advanced investigations we can go for duplex USD ultrasonography. Then
Even basic UG you can start, right?
yes, sir.
Basic ultrasound will give you
Basic
enough
ultrasound.
information.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Plus, you want something additional. It is different, but basic you can actually include many things. So, what all things it will tell you? It will tell you about the free fluid. It will tell you
Yes.
about the organomegaly. It will tell you about anything else that is obviously present in the body, anything that you are unable to palpate percuss
Yes, sir.
because of ascites. Hmm?
Okay, sir.
What else? Investigation,
The CT
radiological,
angiography.
CT, angio. Why
Yes, sir.
angio?
Sir, to see the blood vessels, the status of the blood vessels, because they
Okay,
should be dilated because of portal hypertension. So the diameter and everything will be coming up.
okay, 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 fine.
Sir, sir, even I have considered asking him to go for barium swallow. Barium
Hmm.
swallow. So because if there is any esophageal varices, so we can have a moth appearance, moth eaten appearance on barium swallow.
Yeah, see that is now. I mean, of course, it was one-time gold standard
Yes, sir.
barium meal actually. So we will come to know entire thing, everything. But sometimes if needed, then barium will follow through also.
Yes,
But
sir.
nowadays it is actually replaced by endoscopy.
Endoscopy. Yes, sir.
So we can
I'm going to
straightaway
say that
go
point.
for the
Yes,
endoscopy.
yes, sir.
Hmm.
So
We can go for that.
esophagogastroduodenoscopy to confirm the esophageal
Yes.
varices.
So what it will tell you?
So it will tell
Varices.
me if yes, sir. So if there are any cherry red spots which are seen around, we can see that there is can be impending perforation, which can be rupture, could be seen on the scopies.
Hmm. Okay.
So even splenoportovenography can be done.
Okay. What else you want to see in upper GI-scopy or gastroscopy?
So even I want to see the anatomy of the different structures, which is seen
No.
through the
See, what is important for us is actually to gauge the varices.
varices.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Whether they are in the earlier stage or whether they are in the advanced stage.
Okay, sir.
So
Yes.
how will you grade the stage varices on the endoscopy?
So,
And
sir,
this is a
basically there
little
is
higher
yes,
question,
sir.
but yeah.
So there are three grades which we can see. So grade one, when you can easily compress with a scope, so that is grade one where the varices. So grade two will be when it is not depressed by the scope, and grade three is when it is confluent around the diameter of the esophagus. Grade three.
Okay. Okay. Fine.
So then
Correct.
is another
Yeah. Yeah. What else?
So in the investigations or in the grading.
No. 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 Grading.
So there is even a V6 grading which is seen. So in grade one of V6 grading, we have there is lumen. We see the occlusion of the lumen. So in grade one, there will be 1/4 of the lumen which is occluded. In grade two, half lumen occluded. In grade three, 3/4, and in grade four, full lumen is occluded.
Correct. Correct. So it's a very simplest of the classification,
Yes, sir.
V6 grading system. And of course, what you said first one, it is more of a practical approach. So
Yes, sir.
because if that tells you more whether it is still in an earlier stage or not, and sometimes one can add actually fourth point to that grade, it active bleeding. So again,
Okay.
in that we do mainly for the therapeutic the purposes, not just for diagnostic purpose.
Okay, sir.
Also on gastroscopy, you have to also rule out simultaneously the gastric varices. Here you have
Okay.
rule out esophageal varices. You
Yes,
have to
sir.
go inside, you have to do a J maneuver, and you have to actually see. So this is the esophagus. This is a part of stomach inside. Okay.
Yes.
So the scope goes inside and becomes like a umbrella handle, J
Yes,
shape.
sir.
So initially, see the gastroscope is the end wing scope. Okay. It
Yes,
is
sir.
has 0 degree. So this is a scope. It is a 0 degree. So it is seen is visible.
Yes,
Right?
sir.
So it is not like a ERCP. In ERCP, it is a side view. So here it is an end view. So end
Yes,
view
sir.
has to be seen. So to have an end view fully, the scope has to go and it has to totally go up against. So it is a J maneuver that is happens. So when this is esophagus and stomach, the scope comes inside and it becomes a J shape. So you can actually see encircle the entire thing, and all around you can see the varices at the fundus of the stomach. So that you can actually see the entire thing, and whether it is again same thing, whether it is grade 1, grade 2, or grade 3. Second thing, gastroscopy, you have to also any presence of blood in the stomach in the form of either active bleeding or collected bleeding, or whether there's a presence of clots. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
either of this will tell you. And if the clots are present, then there is a suggestion that the bleeding has occurred in the recent past, and now the blood has clotted. If it is just a say in a liquid format, some blood is there that is present. It is a fresh bleeding, just happened some time ago. And if it is there is no blood, then there's a possibility mild trickle and the blood has washed off. That is a possibility. Plus, you have to also rule out on endoscopy about various internal mucosal changes, such as active peptic ulcer, okay, and
Yes,
any petechial hemorrhages or any edema as such, or any multiple lesions in the gastric mucosa. Now, these all points are very important, and presence of any variegated mucosa or presence of any tumor for that matter. Okay. Now, other syndromes are also there. So, like that, you have to also rule out other possibilities.
yes, sir.
So, the gastroscopy will tell you n number of points, provided you should know what to look for. It is very important. It is not just for at the esophageal level, it is esophagogastric junction and the entire stomach.
Interesting. Yes.
Okay. Plus the content of it as such.
Okay. Okay, sir.
And lastly, you can see also check for the any reflux, if at all, that is present when you are actually withdrawing the scope, and how much the junction is getting pulled up, or whether there is a laxity of the junction or whatever. And accordingly, you can actually do also therapeutic things for the patient if there is a need arises, such as gastric banding or the variceal banding or variceal sclerotherapy.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Then proceed.
So
So
even
gastroscopy is very important. Next is you said splenogram.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Sphygmomatogram.
Okay. Now
So that,
nowadays nobody does actually because of HRCT plain plus contrast. It serves both the functions. So it is at present not required. Initially when it was not there, and splenoportogram we used to look for. So it's about mainly portal vein thrombosis. Okay. Mainly or splenic vein thrombosis rather actually. That is suggestive of what type of obstruction?
so what, sir?
Splenic vein thrombosis tells you what type of obstruction?
Splenic vein, so it tells me about the infravena cava obstruction.
Infravena cava obstruction is not actually, but better terminology for a portal hypertension case.
Terminologies.
No, means whether it is a pre-hepatic, hepatic, post-hepatic.
Okay. Yes, sir. So basically, if there is a thrombosis, there is an obstruction. So that is extrahepatic. Porto.
That is CHPVO. That is different. Extrahepatic portal vein obstruction is a big thing. So in that, we have to again divide into hepatic, pre-hepatic, and post-hepatic. And hepatic again, pre-sinusoidal, sinusoidal, and
post-sinusoidal. Yes, sir.
Okay. So there are n number of things we need to remember in a sequential order. So this is how there is a splenic vein thrombosis. So it comes into a pre-hepatic.
Pre-hepatic format. Yes, sir.
Okay. So pre-hepatic type of obstruction. Fine. Then what else?
So in pre-hepatic obstruction, so there could be
investigation.
Investigation. Okay. So investigations. So this is all about the investigations I would do.
Okay. Then you tell about this pre-hepatic and post-hepatic.
So the causes, pre-hepatic, post-hepatic. Okay. So starting with the pre-hepatic causes, so that could be because of any congenital absence of the portal vein, or this could be also because of any previous trauma or any umbilical sepsis, intra-abdominal sepsis, or even there could be any hypercoagulable state could be there, or there could be a formation of an AV fistula could be present. So this is pre-hepatic causes. Yes, sir. So post-hepatic causes, the intrahepatic causes. Yes, sir. So they are divided into pre-sinusoidal, sinusoidal, and post-sinusoidal. So the pre-sinusoidal cause could be because of any sarcoidosis or schistosomiasis, and the sinusoidal causes could be because of cirrhosis, majorly cirrhosis or alcoholic liver disease, so alcoholic hepatitis. And the post-sinusoidal could be because of any Budd-Chiari syndrome.
Okay. What is Budd-Chiari?
So this is the obstruction of the hepatic veins, and this is classically presented with the triad of 3 symptoms, which will include pain in the right hypochondrium, ascites, and the hepatomegaly.
Okay. So what happens actually there? There is a thin web formation at the junction. So that creates a barrier actually for the individual person. Okay.
Yes.
So again, important in the sinusoidal also is NCPF, that is non-cirrhotic portal fibrosis.
Portal fibrosis, yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. Then what else?
And
Post-hepatic is in Budd-Chiari, of course. And post-hepatic?
Post-hepatic, sir, could be any hepatic vein thrombosis could be there, or there could be, we can also rule out constrictive pericarditis in
hepatic vein thrombosis. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And constrictive pericarditis.
Okay. 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 Fine. Okay. Okay. And how do you? Okay. Tell me about the Child-Pugh classification.
Okay. So, sir, Child-Pugh classification, we have 5 parameters to look for in Child-Pugh, starting with the ascites. Then we have to look for encephalopathy. Then we have serum albumin. Then we have serum bilirubin, and lastly we look for prothrombin time.
Prothrombin time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
Okay. Okay. And do classify into 3 categories: A, B, and
Yes, sir. Grade A, B, and C. If the score is between 5 to 6, then it is grade A. If the score is between 7 to 9, it is grade B. And if it is between 10 to 15, it is grade C.
Okay. Okay. So that is a classification. Any other classification?
Any other classification, sir?
Grading. Initially, it was a Child-Turcot classification. Initially, the Child-Turcot classification, but now that classification was replaced. The older Child-Turcot classification was replaced with Child-Pugh classification, which is a relatively newer one.
Yes.
This newer one has also been now temporarily or maybe superseded by what is known as MELD scoring system. Okay. Now, what is this MELD scoring system? And M stands for model, and it is model of end-stage liver disease score.
End-stage liver disease.
Model of end-stage liver disease score, or MELD scoring system. Now, both the system, Child-Pugh and MELD system, they tell you about the short-term survival benefits up to 3 to 6 months accurately. So this MELD is much better because it adds one more parameter, that is a creatinine. Okay. So creatinine, if it is less than 1.3, then 2 marks are given. If it is between 1.3 to 1.8, and 4 marks are given. If it is more than 1.8, then 6 marks are given. So accordingly, the severity will change. That gives a more accurate staging of the severity of the or the compromise of the patient as such.
Yes,
sir. Okay. Now, suppose your patient has. Now, of course, we have discussed this, but regarding quickly about the banding and sclerotherapy. Just mention.
Yes.
What do you know?
So basically, we can even use the procedure tips. No? We can use tips as a procedure.
Tips is what?
Transjugular intrahepatic portovenous shunt.
Portosystemic shunt.
Portosystemic shunt.
PIPSS. Okay, tips.
Yes.
What are the indication for tips?
So if the
is
patient
it a selective or non-selective shunt?
So it's a non-selective shunt.
Why?
I'm not sure about this one.
Okay. Now, what do you mean by selective and non-selective shunts?
So basically, if the patient requires, if there is a failure of the medical management, so we have to do it. So that is selective.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And non-selective?
So if we directly do it, as the baseline as a baseline treatment protocol.
Okay. Now, sometimes what happens, this also is not sufficient.
Yes.
The such shunts, small shunts, etc. So you have to do certain major procedures, such as.
So the shunt, the portocaval, portosystemic shunts like splenorenal shunt, linorelic shunt.
Shunts are also not sufficient, so you have to go something beyond. That is
so splenectomy.
Devascularization procedures.
Devascularization, yes, sir. We have splenectomy in that. Yes, sir.
So there is a Figura-Futagawa procedure in which we do partial gastrectomy, plus sometimes we have to also do a splenectomy depending on the need. But it is a devascularization procedure. So you devascularize the entire affected system and try to limit, because otherwise patient will bleed to death. it is
Yes.
already compromised. The coagulopathy has gone because prothrombin time has increased. So patient is already having active varices. So patient is going to bleed to death. So in order to avoid that, you have to do that. Now, is there any? Are there any other medical things you have to do simultaneously when you're doing the
Yes, sir.
surgical preparations?
So before the surgery, right? So we can, yes, sir. So we can divide it into primary prophylaxis, secondary prophylaxis. So primary prophylaxis is to not allow the varices to get formed, and that is to we can give propranolol and like the beta blockers to control the hypertension, the systemic,
Okay.
the portal hypertension to at
Mhm.
least 20% should be controlled. At least till 20% should be controlled. Yes, sir. And we can also do endoscopic band ligation. Endoscopic band ligation can be done.
What is the
And
role of octreotide?
so even octreotide, so it will not that is not going to allow more of the blood to get lost if there is any varices, so we give injection octreotide because of that.
How it acts?
So it is going to be act as a vasoconstrictor.
Okay. What
So
else you
that
do?
is yes, sir. Then to now, if there is a varicose bleeding, so first we have to hospitalize the patient and put him on IV fluids to to not allow him to get hemodynamically unstable, and
Mhm.
then we proceed with the IV fluids, and then after that we will give injection octreotide to to stop the loss of blood. Then
Mhm.
even then we can even go for blood transfusions if there is severe loss of blood or there is any if there is any history of
Remember, you
syndrome.
have to tell when patient of portal hypertension or usually varices comes.
Yes,
First
sir.
and foremost thing you do is the blood grouping and cross matching, irrespective of patient bleeds or not.
Okay.
Okay. Now, in the investigation also that thing was remaining blood grouping on cross matching because this is a life saving measure. So you have to keep the at least 2 points ready because you never know. It's like a time bomb. Then patient will explode and have bleeding. So it's very
Yes.
crucial that blood has to be reserved. So it can be either a fresh blood or packed cells blood or a whole blood depending on the blood bank availability and blood bank procedures that you have, components, etc. But that thing is important. Also, there is a requirement for FFP also eventually. Suppose you give at least 4 units of whole blood. There is a possibility you also have to give after each 4 unit 1 unit of fresh frozen plasma so as to compensate what are the losses that are happening. Otherwise, what is happening? Patient will go into DIC.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that we don't want to happen.
Yes.
Simultaneously, you have to also start patient on vitamin K. Okay, so
Yes.
vitamin K 10 milligram intramuscularly over 3 days.
3 days. Okay, sir.
Okay, then what else is important?
So
So
we
the
have to also
sclerotherapy sometimes.
sclerotherapy.
Okay, so how do you do sclerotherapy? Which sclerogen do you use?
Sclerogens. I'm not sure about that.
So what do you understand by sclerogen? These are the specific substances which are
Which you used
used,
to put.
yeah, to cause aseptic necrosis at the base of the varices. Okay, so this is a varices. So you inject into it and cause it to desiccate. Okay, so aseptic necrosis happens at the base. So it can be either intravariceal or perivaricial or
Yes, sir.
combination. So there are three types. One is intravariceal, one is perivaricial, or it is a combination of them. So you inject. Now, what all substances you can inject? You can inject sodium morate, sodium tetradecyl sulfate, polydocanol, 3% phenol in almond oil. Even hypertonic solutions you can inject, and even sometimes tetracycline also. So these all substances you can inject. Usually in UK, STD is commonly used. It is a sodium tetradecyl sulfate or sodium morate. Okay,
Yes, sir.
and polydocanol also can be used, and 3% phenol in almond oil also can be used, and sometimes hypertonic solutions like hypertonic or hypertonic saline can also be injected at the base. So it will cause a lot of edema and it will restrict the vasculature into that and cause aseptic necrosis. That is for sclerotherapy. Some patients also try for uh, this cryotherapy. Now, suppose
Liquid
these
nitrogen.
patients come to you in active bleeding, what you should do, what you can do, or what should do.
So if there is active bleeding, first give him injection octreotide, and then do upper GI endoscopy can be done after that episode has been passed. Upper GI endoscopy, so we can go for
No, when he's bleeding,
okay,
you have to pass on a special tube that is called as
Ryle's tube. No, the S. It starts from S. It starts from S. Sego.
Sengstaken Blackmore tube.
Sengstaken tube. Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So it is a double
So it
lumen.
is a 4-lumen, na, sir.
Yeah, it is a double balloon, 4-lumen catheter. Okay, that we
Yes, sir.
pass. So it has a gastric balloon. It has an esophageal balloon. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so it is inflated with normal saline, and the tube is hitched and fixed at the nostril level. So it will hold and it will stop the bleeding at the esophageal level as well as the esophagogastric junction, which is extremely vulnerable. So at that level, okay. So this SB tube is very important tube. I mean, nowadays it is not seen because hardly it is used because of better interventory methods are there. But Sengstaken Blackmore tube, one should know for writing theory also. When the patient is having actively bleeding varices, one has to actually intervene by using the SB tube. That is a Sengstaken Blackmore tube. Okay.
So we usually give ice cold saline water, right, inside.
Ice cold saline water also can be given, but that is if the bleeding is at a minimum level. If it is moderate level, then SB tube is of use.
Okay, sir.
And then inside you can give lavage, cold saline lavage that you can give. That is fine. Sometimes people recommend even a normal saline lavage because we don't want to actually freeze the thing, but we want to just stop it at certain point. So either cold saline or even normal saline that also can be given to these patients. But important is immediately this patient need to be transfused and coagulopathy stopped.
Yes, sir.
In DIC. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What else?
So then we can, so for varicose bleeding, we can.
Yes.
So for varicose bleeding, we can also give him injection of metoclopramide, and also we can give him injection serotonin, also give him injection vasopressin. But injection octreotide is preferred because it has a shorter half-life. So it is better.
Correct.
So
even
then we can.
People inject Botox also. But that is when the thing is not so active. Botulinum toxin also can be injected, but it is very first line of treatment. It is used when the patient is otherwise stable as such. See, the mechanism is same almost like any sclerosant that we are using. Only thing is that it causes aseptic necrosis and the channel is dry, desiccated. Important. So the banding is important. Sclerotherapy is important. Insertion of cold saline lavage is very important. Then giving blood transfusions are important. Addition of vitamin K is very important. Injection of tranexamic acid also important. Besides octreotide. So injection of tranexamic acid also is due. You can do either in the pint.
Yes, sir.
That will ease. And you need to hydrate this patient because this patient usually come in a hypovolemic shock.
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
So you have to again classify as per the hemorrhagic shock, class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, depending on how much clots. So see, suppose a patient passes a clot of my fist. So how much blood loss has happened?
So it is in ml, sir? So,
ml.
Yes, sir.
Size for clinch, I mean, see, for individual person, for me, suppose in my fist, for you, your fist, how much blood loss?
So I'm not sure about this.
It is approximately 500 ml. Okay, of blood loss. Again, that you can read about the hemorrhagic shock and other thing. Suppose one sponge, small sponges, or one cotton piece is weight completely. So it's approximately 1 ml or 5 ml. But also you have to grade accordingly, depending on how many soakages happen for the patient. But suppose that's why I asked you, when you see on the endoscopic clots, so by just measuring the clots, you can understand how much blood loss has happened to the patient. So you have to replace that, replenish everything. Otherwise, patient will be very pale and then your other measures will be futile. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Very important. Because these patients, usually patients with lot of, because the liver is damaged, there is a high chance that they will go into hypertension shutdown.
Yes, sir.
So that also you have to be very active in preventing that. So kidneys need to open. Even the liver that has been damaged need to be also controlled. And the bleeding has also stopped. So all these three frontiers you have to fight simultaneously. Then only patient can survive. Otherwise, if you just concentrate on the varices and don't mention or don't pay attention to the kidney level or other level, liver, so again there will be problem.
Yes, sir.
And sometimes there is one more entity that you should know, that is a NASH, the non-alcoholic
Non-alcoholic
steatohepatitis.
steatohepatitis.
Also, who do not drink alcohol at all, and also have symptomatology present in early portal hypertension. So you have to be very careful with this particular, knowing this entity. Okay, so good. But this is a good thing that you have discussed so far. If you reach this level, then you have crossed the distance also. That is good thing. So only thing is that not to miss any obvious points. Okay, just remember what we have discussed. So all these points need to be mentioned. Okay. So if any questions, you can ask, or Ashish can take the attendance.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Any questions, anyone?
Sir, I had a doubt.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. One second. Sir, one second.
Yeah.
Hello. Sir, am I
Yes.
being audible, sir?
Yes. Tell.
Yeah. There was some problem with the connection. Yes, sir. So basically, because see, if there is decompensated, I will talk about decompensated first. So if there is decompensated, would include hepatic encephalopathy. Then there would be liver cell dysfunction, could be very advanced, and there could be even we can say a large amount of ascites. Then hepatosplenomegaly would be present. So that is coming in decompensated, and compensated will not have all these things. So that is the difference between them.
Okay. Now you tell me, what is hypersplenism?
Hypersplenism. So it is the splenomegaly, which basically the enlargement of the spleen, sir. And
Okay.
so in
What else?
hypersplenism,
See, there are two types: primary hypersplenism and secondary hypersplenism. In both, the splenomegaly is present. But
so
what,
phenytoin, so that could be involved in the secondary hypersplenism.
any change in the blood picture?
So there would be pancytopenia, which can be seen in peripheral smear. And there would be also problem with the prothrombin time. Then on various investigation, yeah. So there will be even the splenic veins will be dilated if we are seen on investigations. Like there would be a lot of dilatation of the splenic vein. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now the question you asked actually is whether the esophageal transactions are done. So
Yes, sir.
practically no, because we have very good investigative modalities for timely intervention, such as banding and sclerotherapy, that usually controls the main thing. And when the disease is lowered with medical supported treatment, patient is not in that much flared up condition, which requires devascularization procedure or any transective procedures, because it's a major burden. Patient is not fully prepared. You have to operate on emergency basis. So it is not so good prognostic picture for the patient as such. So we avoid, or rather we delay till patient is fully ready for such type of surgeries, mainly device surgeries and any major transaction procedures, because it causes a lot of morbidity and sometimes mortality also, even in the best hands. Because patients is already pale, they are actively bleeding, and there are various sites of portosystemic anastomosis that are flared up. Will you tell me again the various sites where portosystemic anastomosis happen?
So basically, there is first is the lower esophageal junction, the lower esophagus. Then we have the rectal side. So should I also mention the veins involved?
Yeah, ESS.
Okay.
ESS.
Okay.
So when you answer, you always mention with the systemic and portal branch. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. So, sir, when it is lower esophageal, so that is between the left gastric vein and yes, sir, that between the left gastric vein and the esophageal vein. Then we have the rectal varices, the rectal site. So that involves communication between the superior hemorrhoidal veins and the inferior and the middle hemorrhoidal veins. Then we also have the bare area of the liver. Yeah, and then there is rectal and there's also one.
So at bare area
the,
levels, what are the veins?
So these are the omental veins which are involved here.
Okay. Then
Yes, sir. And sir,
at
even there
umbilicus?
is at umbilicus, yes, sir. At umbilicus, that is the veins of the hepatic of the falciform ligament, and the gastric veins are involved here.
Okay.
Yeah, and in the splenic, even there is linorenal ligament, the left splenic vein, and in the linorenal side. So that is the left splenic vein and the omental veins which are involved. So these are five spaces.
Five sides.
Yes, sir. 5 sides.
Correct. So these are the common questions that the examiner may ask, and you need to be prepared. This is relatively a good case. Of course, the discussion is much vast as compared to last case what we have seen, OJ. But again, a straightforward case. But there is a lot of scope because there are two, three front. One is a liver compromise, one is a varices, and there is the overall patient not so in a good condition. So at multiple fronts, you need to simultaneously run. That is the practical challenge. So it is one of the most challenging cases if any surgeon can actually encounter a portal hypertension with bleeding varices. So it's actually a nightmare. But yes, with a good teamwork approach and with good resources, one can actually salvage a patient in time. But timely intervention is most important for all the patients and correct approach. So once that is done, it will be much easier. So it is ultimately a teamwork. But yes, portal hypertension for your point of view as an exam, it is a good case to have. But you need to read a lot because the discussion is on various. So even as per the causes, if you go, there are at least 20-25 causes, pre-hepatic, hepatic, post-hepatic, and in between hepatic also, plus the grading systems, the grading of the varices, the investigations, the categories of investigations, the physical examination, and of course the history. So that is what it makes a little vast case, but not to get scared at all. Like Amatullah has presented very nicely, you all can present. So we just practice, it will be easier. And the sequence you need to just remember in mind, that is most important. Once you go very, very sequentially and methodically, you will not forget anything. There is no need to mug anything. Try to understand each and every concept. One comes after the other, and everything is intertwined. So just remember it, the concept. When that is clear, it will be very, very easier for you to appear in the exams. Okay? Any more questions? Or we'll stop here. Fine?
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah, welcome. Thanks. Ashish can submit attendance to Pasgari, madam.
Yes, sir.
So, thank you. Sure.